All right, I'll go ahead and get started. Well, thank you for making it out. Sorry for the delay. My name is Dennis Hills, and I'm a mobile developer advocate from AWS. And I'm here to talk about building mobile apps, APIs, chatbots on AWS. So this isn't going to be a lot of talking. There might be a little bit of a moment of silence as we go through a little bit of the console-driven stuff, more of a how-to, why we do things, how you want to create a bot. And we're going to do at least 2 demos, and then I'll demo on the phone itself, interacting with a chatbot at the end. So the idea is I want you to come away with a little bit about serverless and how serverless works on AWS, building a mobile app with Mobile Hub. So we'll go through and click a few features, enable some of the back-end features, and then build a fully functional mobile app in iOS Swift. And then we'll go into the some of the high-level features of AI, specifically for a chatbot. We'll go and create a Amazon Lex chatbot for like a vehicle value, sort of based on the topic Swami talked about earlier this morning about a vehicle value. We'll touch on that. And then we'll create that bot, interact with it, and then throw it back into the mobile app that we just created. So hopefully we'll be able to breeze through that quickly, even though we have a short amount of time. And then again, if you have any questions afterwards, come see me and we can talk about some of the details. So here's the agenda. So serverless for mobile. A lot of mobile developers may or may not be familiar with the serverless paradigm shift between like your traditional servers running Apache server, Node.js, whatever it is. The serverless for mobile, the developers are allowed to do a lot of things that they couldn't do before, and reducing cost. They could be more agile, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then we'll talk about how serverless works with AWS for mobile, so some of the specific serverless features. And then build a mobile app on AWS, and then enter the AI, and then we'll build the chatbot, and then add that chatbot to the mobile app if we have time. So traditional servers, you set up, you could, if you needed to scale before EC2 in the cloud, you would just do some hot swappable drives, maybe throw a couple more of these units out, and then you'd scale, and then when you're done, you'd kind of leave it running and have a lot of overhead and cost. Nowadays, the cloud is the new norm, so the introduction of the serverless piece is, and I'm not going to go too far involved with it, but if you have any questions specific about serverless, I can go into more detail. But the idea of the serverless is we have no servers to provision or manage. So there's servers behind the scenes, but what you don't need to worry about, just making the calls, making the API calls, whatever it is, put the code in there and the code just runs. So no servers to provision, scales with usage, never pay for idle. So that's a big deal, right? So as mobile developers, typically you set it up, you're kind of startup, you have it on the App Store, you're not paying anything, you're just letting a code sit there. You're not paying these web servers to set up, ready to go, and hoping that you're gonna get some users. And then a lot of people will over-provision. So what happens is you over-provision these servers, have a huge load ready to go, and then you don't get the users for 2-3 weeks. You're still paying those bills. The idea here is everything's done for you. So think about all this like little minions behind the scenes. You upload the code, and then as the user base starts coming in, pay as you go. And then the nice thing is, say you have a big event. I had an app for the Olympics. And there was a big scale for 2 weeks, right? And then it just dropped off. I paid nothing. I didn't have to provision those servers, let them sit there, pay all that capital expense. What I was able to do is set up a serverless environment where I said, here's my code, all these different little functions, and it runs behind the scenes and then scales. And then as soon as that event's over, it just scales back down and I'm paying nothing. So that's the idea here is this is the base for any of the cloud providers. Anything you want to go with the cloud, set up with the server. It's great for mobile developers. And so you want to go away, just check it out, and you set up with some of the mobile services. And then the serverless piece with AWS. So when we talk about serverless, we're talking about 3 core services and features. One of those is Amazon Cognito for authorization and authentication. API gateways is the second one. That's building APIs, make RESTful endpoints. So if you remember, you had the server, maybe you had an Apache and you had a RESTful endpoint, get, put, post, whatever it might be. And then the Lambda piece is, anybody who's not familiar with Lambda, is the serverless piece which does your business logic behind the scenes. You know, changes a large file to a thumbnail, adds a watermark, whatever you want to be, like send an email out to a customer, whatever you might want to do with that Lambda function. and it could go to any of the services within AWS, or it could go out to another API call. It could call a Google API, from Maps. It could call another third party, Yelp, whatever it might be. You can call it from Lambda. So this is kind of the piece to identify as cloud identity. So we have this authentication, sign-in credentials with Google or Facebook or username and password. They authenticate, and then API gateway will be that router, the verbiage you're used to, like a regular RESTful API, sessionless. You can set up get, put, post, whatever it is, and then just have Lambda do the scenario. So a really good example is a thumbnail app where all the mobile users uploading large photos, and then you're making them into thumbnails. And so upload a photo, you authenticate, API gateway says, okay, take the binary, send it to Lambda, and then Lambda makes a thumbnail, puts it into storage, maybe S3, and then maybe sends a push notification back to the user, say, okay, your thumbnails are ready to share, or whatever you want to do, index them, whatever it might be. Could be the same thing for a watermark. So this is that kind of whole process for anatomy of serverless. So AWS Mobile. So a lot of these features we talked about Cognito a little bit, but authorization, authentication, Lambda and API gateway, those are the server-side logic. That's that kind of that core serverless we talked about. And then Cognito also has a synchronization. So if you're logged in, you can sync between two devices. And then we have Pinpoint, which is analytics and behavioral stuff. So a lot of the stuff is getting into AI, where we are storing a lot of data, collecting a lot of analytics, and we can go in there and crunch these numbers and pinpoint users are using what specific OS, what devices, whatever it might be. If they're, they've used the app 3.5 times in the last 2 weeks, I want to send notifications, say, great, thanks for using the app, whatever it might be, give them credits. And that's the same thing with track retention. You want to be able to keep them moving, keep them purchasing or sharing the app, whatever it might be. S3 is our storage solution, which allows them to use the storage of the cloud. They can upload photos, images, whatever from a mobile device directly to Amazon S3. CloudFront is that global distribution, which we have endpoints all over the world. So if you have users maybe all over the world using and caching some of these images, they have low latency edge points that we have available, so they can connect directly into those edge points versus doing a hop back into Amazon S3 in that region. Push notifications, very popular, again, kind of tied into this retention and behavioral stuff, where you can send push notifications for users who are doing anything from making a purchase or confirmation, whatever it might be, or there's a sale going on, they can click on it and get more information. DynamoDB is our NoSQL database solution. And then the last piece, which is we'll talk about integrating with Amazon Lex. So think about Alexa, but putting it in a mobile device. So the idea is we get to create our own words, we get to do a lot of our stuff, just integrating with the Amazon Lex SDK, which I'll talk about in a few. So that's kind of the ecosystem for mobile developers coming in. And then we have this service called Mobile Hub. So Mobile Hub is a service that aggregates existing AWS services. So I think it's a little bit different service than you're used to, but what we've got a lot of feedback from mobile developers. They come in, we have well over 70 services now on AWS. We want mobile developers to come in and say, where do I get started? What do I do? How do I get this POC set up? How do I do authentication? So we've set up Mobile Hub with feature cards, and they're not necessarily related directly to a service. They may be at one or more services, but we talked about, went back into that screen here, here with all these services. Talked about authentication. We have user sign-in. We have the NoSQL solution, Cloud Logic. So if you think about you building an app, almost any use case you might have here, you would click these features. It's going to build the back end for you. It's going to provision it, just like you would like a CloudFormation or some kind of script function to create all these back-end AWS resources. And then it goes to the next step. It says, okay, wait, well, I don't want to go to GitHub and get another working demo or anything. So we're going to create a working mobile app for you. So you can download a native iOS Objective-C, Swift, or a Android Java application, and then launch and connect into these services to test them out. So the idea is like any non-developer can come in and say, I want to do test out some file sharing option or push notification, engagement, whatever it might be. As a non-developer, I could go in and click these features, create these services, features, download the app that it creates, and then launch it, and then just talk about it, explain it, say, okay, this works this way, it's scaling this way, let's tweak a little bit, and then we'll build these features into our own app. So with that, let's go a quick demo, because this is kind of a workshop. So we're going to go into a quick demo of how easy it is to use Mobile Hub and set up. And if you guys want to follow along, if anybody's got a AWS account. So you log into AWS, and here's all these services that are available. And so as a mobile developer, I want to focus on a few of those things, right? The S3, I need authentication, whatever it might be. So I'm just going to go to Mobile Hub. So think about Mobile Hub when you first go into the console, if you're first using AWS. And what you come in with a project list. So we're going to go ahead and create a new project. And we'll just call it mobile. Let's call it MBeat. And then create project. And then it just sets up all these cards. So let's say I want to add sign in. So I could say email or username. I could set the restriction. So I'm just going to say great. So just by clicking that, behind the scenes is creating a Cognito user pool and authentication, authorization, and also giving me this option to say I want to allow my users to or force my users to log in, or optional. So a lot of times mobile app, you decide which way you want to go, right? You can just force them to log in or not. So in this case, we're saying, okay, optional. And when we build the app, we'll give that option, say you could use some of the features, limited access to those features. And then if you want to log in, you could have more access to it. So for example, if I'm doing a file sharing app and I have a public folder, let's say, for app users, anybody who's unauthenticated could maybe throw a bunch of images into the public folder. But if they're logged in, authenticated with username, password, or any of the social media, they can have access to a private folder. So we could use it as like a shared Dropbox or something, whatever they might want to use. They can use it as their own private resource, share these images, and then they can share them out later. So that's kind of the idea between setup, or if somebody does an in-app purchase and they're now a pro user, you can use it that way and say, okay, they're authenticated, and then give them more access to those. So I'm going to say optional for now, so we can run in there without requiring them to log in. And then the Cloud Logic feature, this is the piece where we're going to literally just build the API here. So we're going to do a vehicle demo. So I'm going to go vehicle here, and then I'm going to create just an endpoint just called vehicles, and then just click there. And what this is doing is creating the API gateway. Remember we talked about the front end, the API gateway, so when the mobile users come in and they do like a get vehicles, right? They say, I want to get a list of vehicles. They're going to go to API gateway, and then behind the scenes, we're going to have a Lambda connect into, pull whatever database, whatever list of vehicles are available, and return back to the mobile device. And remember, we only have, I'll show you the code behind the scenes, but we only have a Lambda function and API gateway. So now we have this set up, we're not going to be charged anything because we have our code just set up waiting, and then we have a user come in, 10 users to go, all of a sudden we're on Shark Tank. The same setup, we don't have to do anything. Shark Tank come in, it's like, all right, you need to scale this. Okay, I have it set up on serverless. The idea here is you're setting up this with the best practices. You're already setting up with the serverless environment. It's already going to scale for you. The usernames are all going to scale for millions of users through Cognito. You have Lambda, which scales to thousands of requests per second. And so you're just sitting there, and you just made this app, and you can scale. So there's no migration of data. It just automatically scales, and then you just sit back and see the numbers. You can collect data, analytics, whatever it might be, and then or monetize from advertising or whatever it might be. So here we created a Cloud Logic, which is the API Gateway Lambda feature, and then remember this was the authentication authorization piece. So right now we've built those three pieces, the core. So pretty much this will cover a lot of use cases for mobile developers. Like, right, you gotta have authentication, gotta have storage, gotta have this. And then we'll come back to the bots, because I haven't built the bot yet, but we'll come back to that, and we could just say integrate with a bot that I've already created, and then it'll integrate with a microphone, put all those permissions in there for you. So the idea here, so we just created these little features, integrate. So right now, it's building a fully functional app that's specific to my resources that I just created. So within a few minutes, luckily this session is short, but we're going to hit download. And what this is going to give me is an iOS Swift Xcode project. I'm going to unzip, probably could change one identifier so I can sign it, and then I'm going to launch it on my phone. We'll have to wait till the 12. Usually it's within milliseconds at home, but the network's okay. So, and then if you wanted Objective-C, you want to try it in Android, And then we have another JavaScript solution for a different use case. But the idea here is you create these resources, and this is a sample app to kind of get started to understand exactly what you're doing, the gets and posts, play around with it. And then there's integration instructions on this other key part here, where you can actually download the SDKs and then follow the instructions to implement those into your own mobile app. Okay, so we just downloaded that, and I'm gonna open it up here, close this out, so we have this MB. So remember, it's just a zip file. And then I'm gonna open it up here. And then it trusts, yep, I trust it from S3. And then it's gonna load, do a quick index. Remember, I haven't used this before, so this is just newly created based off the resources I just provisioned. Here. So what I'm going to do is just do a quick signing if anybody's ever done an Xcode project. The nice thing, they allow you to sign it. And then I'll just do my own identifier, AWS mobile, and then web, and then MB1. Okay, and then we're going to sign it with my name. And then we'll do a, we'll just do a 6S, whoops. We'll just choose a 6S on here, and then we're gonna play it on once that loads. So everything was set up in here, so we don't have to download anything from GitHub. We don't have to go and put constants in, whatever it is. This is just gonna work. So the nice thing is, a lot of developers, you get stuck at a certain point. You hit that wall, right? You got everything set up, and then there's one issue that you maybe authenticated wrong, or there wasn't, like, you didn't switch something on right, whatever it might be. This gives you the idea of, like, I want to set it up, it works great. Okay, now let's start, like, pulling the pieces. Let's pull it apart. Let's take a look at it. Let's see. Let's scale down a little bit. So this gives you the piece where I can log in with username and password. And then this, again, this is just a demo app to explain kind of like we had that vehicle app, and then we could do certain features like get and invoke it and pretty much just do a test. And then this behind the scenes, you're seeing this response. This is coming from the Lambda function that was created on our behalf to, like, it just shows some of the response headers and gives you a bunch of information, kind of set it up. And then in here, if I want to go to resources, this Lambda function right here, this vehicle Lambda function, this will take you right back here. Everything right here was exactly what was spit back to the mobile device. So this was just a Node.js sample code right here that you make a change to. An API gateway has permission to make a call to Lambda, and then Lambda does its thing, whatever it does, spits back that code, that JSON response string, back into the mobile device. So if I took that same endpoint and went to the web and just do a quick curl or whatever it might be, I would get the same response. And then if I authenticated, it would come back and pull up a little bit more information about that user if I wanted to. And on top of that, the user has, with the integration with Cognito, we also have the great feature of forgot your password, create a new user, you know, that whole flow of, like, people always forget their password, forget whatever I was logged in. And then it automatically integrates, or not automatically, but integrates if you choose to go with Facebook or Google. So integrates with the SDK, sets it up so that the right takes the best practices so you can log in with Facebook, it'll authenticate you, you can pull the graph information, whatever it might be. And then Cognito will give you temporary credentials and then call the AWS services. So that's all it really is. Username, password, you get temporary credentials to call your resources. Or the same thing from a Google user or a Facebook user. They're the same thing. They can log in, you give them access to your resources, and that's it. So instead of putting those keys, those really famous keys that get lost or hacked or whatever it is, you're not putting your server key in there, you're not putting in a secret key, you're putting in an endpoint so that each user gets this limited time-released credentials into your resources. Okay, so that was pretty quick. So that's the idea. It's like, I want you to come away with, like, understanding what serverless is, how we use it here with AWS, and then the fact that you can just come in here, build out proof of concept, build out some sample apps, and then go play with it. So that nice thing is just like the user sign-in feature, go through the whole process, add some features, and then download it. And same thing with Android if you wanted to. So that makes sense? Ready to follow along? It was super fast. Okay. So now we're going to go back into the PowerPoint. We're going to talk about the bot piece. So we just built a mobile app, created the API, integrated with the mobile app. So now we got the whole structure in there. So let's like enhance that API by adding a front end to it. We want somebody to do a natural language speaking into my API. So instead of somebody clicking on get me the vehicles, how about let's have some interface, some dialogue. And let's do that. And did anybody see the talk this morning with Swami and Kelly Blue Book? Good. So this is one of the slides from his deck, and he talked about some of the platforms, engines, infrastructure. A lot of you might be used to this. These are very comfortable to use. Some of them may not. But the idea is what we're talking about here is the services on top of that to give it to the everyday developer to utilize vision recognition, speech and poly, and Lex. So the recognition was the piece where you saw the law enforcement use. You saw a lot of use cases for that with the facial recognition. It could tell you age approximation. It could do like if somebody's smiling, male, female. It's just awesome stuff that you can use in mobile. And just like I could take a picture and say, this crowd is 50% female, 50% male, just by looking at the picture and determine that, or the average age. It would be, some of that stuff is automated, and behind the scenes, it's using the machine learning. But all that's available to you now if you just want to utilize the API. Speech is the poly part where you just take text and translates into speech. You heard on the demo there, you could choose multiple voices with accents, male, female voice, some that sound like a children's voice, maybe for a children's book or something. But the idea is to take text and spit that back into a natural language. And when we do the chatbot, which is the next to Amazon Lex, that integrates Poly into it. So when you talk into it, it goes back into the Lambda function. Remember the serverless piece, which I'll talk about, comes back, Lambda sends back a piece of text, and then Poly translates that and converses in the language you chose, in the voice that you chose for that bot. So those are the pieces we're talking about. So this everyday chatbot, and so we're going to implement that and talk about some of the pieces of an Amazon Lex chatbot. So here's a quick piece of what we're going to build. User converses into the bot. The bot does a lot of translation, natural language translation, sends it into Lambda. Remember we had API Gateway Lambda? This is the piece. This is the natural piece, understanding that serverless, where you have a piece of code that does something based on interaction with a mobile device, interaction with Lex, whatever it might be. You could have the same Lambda function respond to both the bot or the mobile device, however you want to do it. Or you can have a completely different Lambda function. Again, you have your code sitting on Lambda and not paying anything for that code until somebody actually activates that. And each of the services have their own set of free tier with LexBot and with Cognito, some of the other services. So it just depends on what services you're going to be utilizing. But if no one's accessing the API, the logic, you're not paying anything. And again, it can go back into any of the AWS services or anything outside of the services. So let me show you what this looks like. This is what we're going to build. So the idea, we're going to come in and we're going to talk about intents and slots. And really the intent is like, what do I want to do? I want to get a vehicle value. I want to order something. I want to book something. So in this case, this is based off the Kelly Blue Book. We're going to quickly build a vehicle value. And we're going to build out, say, what's my car worth or what's my vehicle worth. And then we could set up these slots. And basically the slot values is, imagine when you have an API and you're looking for certain values. Like you're looking in, somebody types in, I want to do a trade-in, and they do the drop down the year, right? And you drop down the year, and you drop down the Honda for the make and model. This is the same concept, except for these slots take those values, translate it from the voice. So if I say trade-in, it picks this voice up, goes to the Lambda function, says, okay, everything's valid. All right, year, make, model, all the way through. And then when I build this bot, all these are requirements to be able to fully calculate what a vehicle's worth. It'll go through and then finally go back into whatever API you have, whether it's a vehicle inventory, whatever. It'll come back. And again, the text is sent back from Lambda, and then it's translated. Poly will talk back to the user and give that current value. Or it may go back in, if it's not fulfilled everything, it'll go back and say what value, what year, whatever it might be. And it'll decide, it knows what slot it's looking for, and it knows what type it's looking for. Like in some cases, it might just look for a number and not like a text. Or it might look for specific models or makes. And so what we're gonna take a look at is these are the utterances, which is the intent. I wanna be able to do a trade in or trade my value up. We have the Lambda functions in the back end. These are called every time you call the Lex. And then these are the slots. Remember the vehicle year, make, model, whatever it might be. So this is a good example of just a typical vehicle year, make, and model. And then you could have a question mark, say, okay, as soon as that is available, what year is your vehicle? And then it'll prompt for the next one saying these are the required amounts and this is the next one. As soon as I say what value is. And I'll be able to demonstrate that. All right, let's go back into there. And then we'll go into, I'll probably start out, since we got 10 minutes, so I'm gonna go just briefly talk about those pieces. And then I have one already set up that I can run through, because I want you guys to see the demo. It's kind of cool how it interacts. So what we had there was this vehicle value. So first we create this intent, which is the trade value coming in. And these utterances, this is like different values. You can start out with 1 or 2. And the nice thing about Lex is it learns from these users. As soon as I have it released to like 1,000 users, everybody has their own utterance, like, give me my value, tell me my value, whatever it is, what's my car worth, tell me my sale price, whatever. Everybody uses different utterances. And that's kind of what this is based off of. Like, we can go back into some of the monitoring, and I don't know if this has it, but it monitors these utterances for you, and it'll have a list of all these utterances that were missed that maybe people were asking about, like the sale. So you can go in there and add those as utterances. So you can have this massive list of utterances that people might use to try to request the vehicle value. So you can build those out as you see, and then the slots. We set up the slots, and the power of these slots is these values here, the Amazon number and the vehicle make. So vehicle make and model are custom. They're just saying, hey, I'm just expecting this text. There's nothing special about them. But when we talked about like ordering food or setting dates or something like that, there's specific slot values that you could utilize that are already, if anybody's done an Alexa app or anything, there's values in there. You could say like European cities. So it knows it's looking for a European city. And then dates are really important because it knows the difference, and everybody's used to this, but it's so simple now. But if you use one of these special slot values, like I want to set up an appointment tomorrow. It knows that tomorrow is Thursday. It knows that what day it is, where you are located, all that stuff. I want to set an appointment for 6 a.m. It knows it's already past 6 a.m. today, so it has to be 6 a.m. tomorrow. So a lot of that stuff just you take for granted, but all that stuff is built into these models, so that when you click on and use some of these values like Amazon number, if I said, what's the vehicle year, and I said 2003, it might say 2003 and actually spell it out, but it knows it's looking for a number. So when I say 2003, it should always say 2003 and put that value in and send it off to Lambda. So, and then here I have 2 options for Lambda integration. So the initialization validation. So every time I give a value with one of these slots, it can go in and validate with Lambda, and Lambda can say, yep, that sounds good, great, go back to the API. Or say, nope, I need something else, and then maybe suggest something. And then for the final fulfillment, you could have the same Lambda function or a new one to actually fulfill it. So remember all those pieces where everything's fulfilled, and it says, great, that's all I need to know for this value. And then it goes maybe another API call and says, all right, get the actual value. So just like you would make a normal API call from a website, web server, API, you need to do the drop down and submit that information. And once it has all the value, it goes back in. And that's kind of what they demonstrated today at the keynote with the Kelley Blue Book. All those values were satisfied, and then it goes back into their API and brings back that nice Kelley Blue Book value as if you were just right there at the website, but you were talking to the bot. So once we build this, we have an opportunity to chat with it, or we can do the voice through the browser. But I'm going to go ahead and show you what we did with the integration. So we built this bot. It's called Vehicle Value. And if we go back into our mobile hub, remember we created this mobile app in MB. So if we go into here, and we say, okay, we could make an appointment, we can order flowers. These are examples, bots that you can integrate. And then if I want to import one already, I can say vehicle value, echo me or whatever it is, import. And now I'll download that package again because it's rebuilding my project. And I would download that source, and then it would automatically have another feature card and say conversational bots. And I can interact with the bot via text or voice. So it sets up the microphone. It allows, say, it wants permissions for the microphone. It puts in a little text field in there so you could like do a dialogue with send and receive. And then the microphone, you could talk into it. And I'll run that since we were running a few minutes. I'm going to run through the demo of what that looks like for the actual application. So I have it here. So I have it set up for, so pretend we did the same thing. I'll close that one out. But so we have this conversational bot. As soon as we enable that, we have, remember I did vehicle value, echo me, I could demonstrate, which is basically say echo, and then whatever I say, it'll just echo back. So the simple test, what it does is like takes my voice, translates the text, goes back to Lambda. Lambda says, okay, I know what all this text is, goes back, and poly translates that into voice and says pretty much whatever I just said. And the vehicle value is here, so I'm going to just say, can everybody see that? Yeah. What is my 2012 Honda worth? So what model is your 2012 Honda? Civic. And then to your 2012 Honda Civic is ready to validate. So the idea is like it got those values, and then if I say, what is my Honda worth? So it says what year. So I already knew, wait, I already knew it was my Honda. Okay, so sure, 2009. What model? Civic. And now 2009. So see how it sends that dialogue. It knew that okay, I said, when I set up those utterances, it knew that it was looking for this year, make, and model. And I was like, what's my Honda worth? And it's like, oh, I don't have the other slot value. So I need to go back and ask for that slot value. And then it said, what year? And then I gave it the year, put the 2 slots to value, because it keeps passing back those slot values. And then it builds up all those slot values in that JSON, and then comes back and says, okay, great. And it knows exactly what the next one, and then it could go on, right? What color, what year, what mileage, whatever it might be. And then I'll see what, let's see what it does for voice. So with the demo, you could see, you could do the voice demo, and they could say, what is my Honda worth?
What year is your vehicle?
2009.
What model is your 2009 Honda?
Civic.
Your 2009 Honda Civic vehicle has been validated and ready for trade-in. Do you want me to call the fake API?
Yeah, so call fake API. So it could do a demo afterwards. So if once it's succeeded, it's okay, great. It could send you a report, whatever it wanted to do, because remember you have the Lambda function, so it could send back the text and say, okay, great, do you want me to send you an email of this report? Do you want me to send you a picture? Do you want to know what a red Honda Civic looks like? Sure. And then it could pop up on Honda Civic. So really it's kind of like, that was just the basis, but you can utilize and take advantage of that functionality in there, or send it to another function, or send it to a push notification, whatever it might be that user can do. And then the one last piece that I want to do a demo. So we had the text, we had the voice, we were able to interact with the mobile app, and then the last piece we have these channels with the bot. So Amazon Lex allows you to set up with Slack, Twilio, SMS. So I set up a Twilio, and I could send a text and do the same thing if my screen is still here. Yeah, and this is a pretty easy integration. If anybody's ever used Twilio, just ask me for some keys in there, and then I can go ahead and pull in. Oh, I'm going to go to text, and I have a phone number set up. And basically, it's the same thing. What I just did in the mobile app, I just texted. So no mobile app is required here. And as you can see, I was trying it earlier. What is my Honda worth? And this is going straight to Twilio. Twilio is going to Amazon Lex. Lex is going to Lambda, and then it's all coming right back to me through text. And then I say the year, 2007. We'll come back. Or maybe. What model? Of course, it's still a Civic. And comes back. Year 2007. And that's it. So the idea is we built this bot with one setup. We set up all the intents and everything utterances, and we were able to build it in a mobile app. We could put it in the website. We could put it in Twilio. We could put it in a chat. We could put it in a Facebook messaging, whatever we want to do. We have this option to like just quick integration. We have this one feature in there and then integrate it in there. So, and then we built this API that can connect into it and call other features outside of Amazon or within Amazon. So it's kind of now a chance to build out whatever you guys want. So that was the idea of like setting it up from beginning to end. If it was too much, I'll be back there if anybody wants to talk about any of the pieces we demonstrated. Thank you.